This training video is brought to you by K-Alliance. K-Alliance is the 21st century's educational corporation, specializing in the most comprehensive enterprise training solutions, ranging from e-learning to instructor-led training. Press play for success. After watching this video, be sure to become a Facebook fan to receive the latest updates, promotions, and course releases. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to preview the latest desktop, soft skills, and IT training videos.
Now we're going to begin looking at configuring connection security rules. These are the rules we're going to implement on each individual computer to enforce security settings for specific connections between this computer and others. The Windows Firewall will use the rule to evaluate traffic and determine whether or not that traffic should be protected via IPsec. Okay, in other words, the firewall rule can allow or deny, or can allow only if secure. And so based on the protocol or the port number, the destination, or excuse me, the source computer or destination for outgoing, we'll use the firewall rule to tell us whether or not a connection security rule is actually used. Now, the type of rule that you choose is going to be based on the specific scenario. These can be configured locally on each machine, or as we said, you can use group policy and Active Directory to apply the same rules consistently across multiple computers. So here are the different rule types that we would see in the wizard. The first type of connection security rule is an isolation rule. Isolation rule is fairly straightforward. It is isolating based on certain criteria, and those credentials generally are domain membership or health status. So domain membership, we could set up rules that basically disallow our machine's domain members from communicating with non-domain members. More likely, we're using this in conjunction with IPsec enforcement for network access protection, in which computers, when they start up, will request a health certificate via Health Registration Authority and Active Directory certificate services. The only way I get a health certificate is if I'm in compliance with the health policies set up on our Windows servers, forcing firewalls and antivirus and Windows Update and the like. If I meet all those stipulations, then I get a health certificate. So the rule put in place on each client says only communicate with other machines that also have a health certificate. It's an isolation rule. The second type is actually an exemption. Okay? Authentication exemption prevents certain computers or IP addresses from being required to authenticate and communicate securely. We might use this in situations where we have an older machine, server or client, that's not capable of utilizing IPsec. Server to server is protecting traffic between specific hosts. Using our earlier example of a front-end server that's providing for instance, Outlook web access, communicating with the mailbox server holding the databases. That could be a point-to-point communication. I'm just trying to authenticate and encrypt the traffic sent from the front end to the back end. We could do the same thing with a front-end web server and a back-end SQL database. Okay, but it's a point-to-point type of thing. Now, that could be confused with a tunnel. Server to server, we're saying traffic between two specific hosts. Tunnel is really only used when the server is acting as a router. And so usually we don't use tunnel mode with Windows servers. We do probably use tunnel mode in relation to VPNs, but it's most likely between routers and firewalls. It's not between two servers, because we typically don't have that. And you can choose custom as well and set up different options. How about the two different modes? We've mentioned this a couple of times, transport mode and tunnel mode, and the endpoints are going to be a little different. The endpoints are the nodes that are involved in the secure IPsec communication. But the endpoint is really going to depend on the actual mode that you use. In tunnel mode, the entire IP packet is protected by treating it as an AH or ESP payload. So the entire packet is encrypted, and it's then encapsulated with an AH or ESP header and an additional IP header. The addresses on that outer IP header are the two endpoints, and in this case it's a VPN, and usually those are going to be firewalls and routers. Whereas in transport mode, it's a little bit different. In transport mode, only the data portion of the packet is protected by ESP, and the ESP header is unprotected. The endpoints in transport mode are the individual hosts that are involved in the communication. So tunnel mode, it's always the router to router, and that's where everything's happening. Transport mode, it's host to host, and those actually, transport mode would really be the only ones that actually use connection security rules. When you have a point-to-point tunnel between two routers, say from a branch office to a main office, the clients don't even know IPsec is being used. They don't have to be enabled for IPsec because it's only being used when traversing that unsecure part of the network. So when we deal with connection security rules and endpoints, we're typically dealing with transport mode on our Windows servers. All right, that helps to understand the different types of rules in the endpoints. Now let's take a look at the available authentication and encryption settings.